Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the VRRC for round number 2 of our latest 8-week championship, and we are mini racing once more after a very exciting opening 2 rounds a week ago at Donington Park. We now travel, actually not all that far away really, down to the home of British Motorsport and the Silverstone circuit, the international variant, playing host to rounds 3 and 4 of our mini JCW Racing League. Andy McEwen back with you once more this week, and delighted to be reunited with my regular co-commentator Jack Oliphant for this week. Richard John Neal, don't worry, he will be back. We will be bringing you some form of professional commentary before the season is out, but for tonight, you're back with us too. And Jack, happy to have you back. Happy to be back as well for the second round of what's already turning into a hugely exciting championship.
Well, there was never much doubt in that one, was it? It's a bit of a shame that I had to miss last week, but a friend's 30th birthday ended up getting in the way. How dare he arrange his date of birth on a VRRC evening? It's a horrible thing to do in my perspective. But anyway, I am excited. As we said, it was always a pretty much sure thing that the minis were always going to provide some absolutely cracking entertainment, and the British circuits we've got on offer are only getting better from here and more interesting, and of course, they start to vary quite massively, don't they?
Yes, they do indeed. We're spanning the length and breadth of the British Isles, actually, across this championship, which is something nice, something different, something we haven't really had the opportunity to do all that much in the past. Now, as we said a week ago, we were at Donington Park. We had 2 very exciting races that produced exactly the kind of bumper-to-bumper mini racing that we were sort of expecting, really. And it was a really interesting picture at the top, actually. Joel Lask, who hasn't raced full-time with us for a couple of months or so now, well, he was straight back on the pace, top point scorer across the night after a win in the first race. Yeah, he was absolutely flying. Got back on the podium for race 2 as well with the reverse grid. And then the returning Brad Smith, who really was Mr. Consistency, missed out on a victory, but did have a pair of second place finishes a week ago. So he's snapping at the heels of Joel Lask, just 4 points between them at the moment. And Josh Martin, third highest scorer last week. Nice to see him having a bit of a return to form as well. So interesting to see how Josh gets on this weekend, whether he can continue that now that he's carrying a little bit more of that pesky success ballast. We also had a driver of the round award that was handed out to Brad Smith, just because he hadn't raced with us for so long. He came back and was immediately back on the pace, and a deserving recipient of the driver of the round award. And again, he'll be hoping now to continue on in that vein of form this week. So that is how the early championship standings look, of course, at the top, because we've only had the 2 races. So Joel Lask, early points leader, Brad Smith second, and Josh Martin in third. Nicky Taylor fourth for HFT Racing, the real world mini racer, will be a bit disappointed, I think, that he only managed a best of third place in the first race. Got caught up in a few early battles in race 2, didn't make quite the forward progress he would have liked. And then a couple of new names, John Higgins and Tom Churchhouse. John Higgins didn't decide to race with us, actually, until I believe the morning of race day a week ago, when he saw Richard John Neal put out a social media post saying that he'd be commentating on the series. and the real-world Hills Motorsport mechanic, MX5 racing team, Hills Motorsport, is already a race winner because he won the reverse grid race. Tom Churchhouse, another relatively new name to the VRRC, sits sixth ahead of Chris Blakey, Nathan Smith, Craig Curtis, and Paul Laramie, all of whom are looking pacier than we've seen for quite some time, perhaps ever, actually, in some of their cases. And so hopefully they'll keep that going again here this week. So that's the championship standings tonight. In fact, there's the second page of the championship standings. We had a total, I think, of 20 drivers scoring points across the two races a week ago. And I'm sure some of those who didn't manage to score at Donington will be able to add to their points haul here this week. And there you can see at the bottom, a big story was the non-score of Kyle Felvers. Now, Kyle, granted, more of a GT racing specialist, you would have to say, but we know he's pretty handy in front-wheel drive these days. Wasn't feeling very well, he told us afterwards. Said he was feeling quite severely under the weather. Wasn't able to finish either of the races. In fact, didn't even start race 2 a week ago. That's it. That's his drop score used up now, so can't really afford to have another bad night of racing. Hopefully he'll be able to bounce back in style here at Silverstone. Right, that's it for the championship standings. We arrive then here at Silverstone, as I've said, the home of British motorsport, and Jack, the Silverstone International Circuit is a bit of a hidden gem, really. It's not one of those layouts that get used a huge amount for high-profile race meetings, popular amongst club racers, though, and hopefully tonight we're going to see why.
Yeah, well, the national circuit is the normal one we go to, isn't it? That's the one where all the touring cars play on. It's, yeah, the most common one if you're not going to do the GP loop. The international, I think, splits opinion a little bit more, but there are some really good overtaking opportunities down in towards the Vale chicane, into Stowe, of course. Fast Abbey, a fast first corner, and into Village is always an overtaking opportunity. So really, you could probably argue there's actually more racing around this circuit, and hopefully the minis will provide that. If you want to have a quick look at what it looks like, then I'm glad to say that Andy is about to take you for a lap around in the mini.
So, the Silverstone International Circuit then. Nicky Taylor, our guide for a hot lap around what is quite a deceptively tricky circuit, actually. It's still got a couple of long straights, including the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight past the Silverstone wing, at the end of which you barrel into the almost flat-out right-hander at Abbey. Front-wheel drive car understeers over to the curb. You then hug that same curb through the left-hander at Farm to keep the car on the left-hand side of the road into the big braking zone at Village, one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit. Then we head into the loop flat out on this layout because we head down the link road and into the right-hander that heads out onto the Hanger Straight. So we've cut out a huge chunk of the Grand Prix circuit, but we rejoin that famed layout now, heading underneath the paddock entrance bridge. And already the drivers are looking towards the top of that crest and the turning point for Stowe Corner. Very late on the brakes, just there at the start of the curve. Roll the car in. The crest in the road just creates a bit of turn-in understeer, but Nicky Taylor manages that well. Careful of track limits on the exit before you drop down into the Vale, and again brake just at the start of the curve on the right-hand side and avoid the sausage curves through the club chicane, cutting plenty of that second curve, and then it's flat out from here to the line through Club Corner itself and back out onto the pit straight. It's still a relatively short lap, throws a lot at you in a short space of time, and always produces good racing. So that is the Silverstone International Circuit, and I don't know about you, Jack. I don't know whether you've driven it in real life. I haven't had that pleasure, but I've done a lot of sim racing around this place, and I find it quite a frustrating circuit because it looks very simple, really. When you look on a map, it's basically a square with a little corner chopped off, but it's very, very difficult and very easy to make a silly little mistake under braking, miss an apex, and it's a very momentum-based circuit. Miss an apex and you instantly lose 3, 4, 5 tenths of a second and your lap's ruined.
Yeah, it's like that on quite a few sort of these smaller circuits, isn't it? I have driven it in real life, only the once though. It's obviously the least popular Silverstone layout. I've driven the GP, I've driven the National quite a lot, and for some reason, when I was doing the GT4 Super Cup, they essentially decided it'd be a good idea to go for a test day, but the only one we could get to was on the international circuit, and we were racing the national circuit. So it didn't really make much sense to me, but I went, we did it, I got back in the rhythm of it, and that's about as much as I can say. I didn't really particularly enjoy driving it, but having said that, on the sim, whenever we've gone to these events, you know, with VRRC, we've tried to do it every so often. I've actually enjoyed it there more, but it is much harder to teach someone around the lap of the international than the national, showing that it's obviously a little bit harder to get to grips with. Hopefully that kind of challenge will mean we'll be separating the drivers just that little bit more, and they'll have had to put those practice laps in, Andy, because of course the national circuit is one that they'll have done hundreds of times before. They'll have put thousands of laps in, whereas the international, hopefully we've seen people get that grind in with the Mini, trying to learn the car and the newish circuit as well. So I'm excited to see how they adapt. We know we've had some early quick runners as well. I think Andy Carroll was fairly high up on the order, wasn't he? Going out of practice. We're now into qualifying, and this is where it counts.
Indeed so, and already drivers getting down to business. Nicky Taylor fastest with a 1:12.8. That's about a tenth of a second slower than the fastest practice time from the this evening's free practice session anyway, which was topped by Andy Carroll. Andy looking very rapid this week I should say. So too is Tom Churchhouse, though, right up there in the championship standings, right up there in the qualifying standings at the moment too. Second place is where he stays for now, but he looks as though he is bang on the pace. Good to see Carl Felvers up there. In fact, Carl Felvers improves as I say that onto the front row. Carl needs a good pair of races tonight to bounce back from what was, by anyone's standards, I think, a disastrous season opener last time out. Andy Carroll goes third. That knocks Churchhouse down to fourth, and the championship leader Joel Lask down into fifth position. Now, I would venture, Jack, that this is probably not the best of circuits really to be carrying a huge chunk of success ballast at, because it is quite stop-start. Both ends of the circuit feature at least one big braking zone and one big acceleration zone. Joel Lask arrives here tonight with 45 kilos on board. He and Brad Smith, in fact, both carrying 45 kilos of ballast. That, you would imagine, is going to have an effect.
Yeah, I imagine it would as well. I mean, of course, it's fairly flat. There's only one corner that has any kind of elevation, and actually you're looking at a camera angle that shows it off quite well there with Stowe, but you're only going up about 3 to 5 meters, aren't you, probably? It's probably a little bit more than that, but it's still not that big a deal. You're right, it is quite stop-starty, going through Club, going through Abbey, and down towards the sort of second and third corner is probably the most flowing this circuit gets, but apart from that, you're really anchoring on the brakes, you're really asking the engine to do a lot of work, and you're asking even more, obviously, if you've got that 45 kilos on board. I was just having a look at the championship as well. Fifth place, John Higgins. You said that he only decided to turn up when he saw that Richard John Neal was commentating with us, Andy, if that's correct. Guess who's not here tonight? Richard John Neal. Guess who's not racing tonight? John Higgins. Clearly, we're the beater here, aren't we?
Yes, although I have commentated on his team owner and boss, therefore, Aidan Hills, for literally the entirety of Aidan's racing career. So, you know, I'd like to think that that would have had some effect on whether he chose to be here. It is worth pointing out that we have 21 cars on the grid. Not a small grid by any stretch of the imagination, but compared to the 27 who entered the season opener at Donington Park, we have lost a few. Now, that's not because they've all fallen out with us or Rich Hayden or Silverstone. It's because, for some reason, and Jack, I can't quite figure out why, I think lots of them have decided to go out tonight and maybe a bite to eat. Perhaps there's a good film on at the cinema. I don't know why it just happened to be on VRRC night, but yeah, it's nice to see that the 21 drivers we have got their priorities right.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably something to do with the fact that it was Pancake Day yesterday.
Of course.
Maybe they missed it and they thought, oh God, I've got to skip racing today because I've got to get those pancakes in. John Churchhouse going on top of the order with a purple sector 1. That's a very, very quick time indeed. It's a 1 minute 12.7. Now, we did see a 1 minute 12.6, I believe, in practice. So Churchhouse is right at the top, strong end of the order. Nicky Taylor is towards that way as well. He's second place. Another 1 minute 12.7, but only 200ths behind Churchhouse. And then you've got Kyle Felvers, the deemed front-wheel drive hater among us. I'm not having it anymore. He might hate it, but he's pretty quick, so I'm not having a bit of an excuse. Andy Carroll all the way down in 4th, Andy, which he's probably going to be slightly disappointed with 8 minutes to go, considering his practice times.
Yeah, he's not gone as quick as his practice time yet either, has he? He's not yet broken into the 112.7s. Tell you who will be happy, though, is Lee Piercy. Lee Piercy, 5th quickest at the moment, so he's looking right on the pace. Lee is not inside the top 10 in the points. He's 12th, actually, at the moment, but carrying no ballast, so that car is among the lightest cars on the grid. But that being said, still a very impressive performance. Chris Blakey, meanwhile, has just done a personal best in the second of the 3 sectors. So he's approaching the end of the lap and he's just finished the lap, in fact. Wasn't an improvement in time in the end because, of course, this being a relatively short circuit, just the 2 sectors for them to deal with. But Chris Blakey, we saw him have a few flashes of brilliance in the Porsches, didn't we? He was a regular podium finisher in the admittedly not terribly well supported Cayman class, but he in the minis, a big grid where everyone's in the same car, Jack, Chris Blakey is showing that he's continuing to learn and continuing to get faster.
Yeah, which we love to see because, Chris Blakey, he provides some entertainment. I think what you see is when they get quicker and quicker, the pace might come, but the racecraft still needs a little bit of etching because, of course, you start to drive with the quick people, you start to race against them, how are you going to overtake them? It's a different kettle of fish than when you are racing in the midfield or racing towards the back end of the pack as well, because if you're racing hard at the back end of the pack, you're probably feeding on people's mistakes. They're probably bigger mistakes and they probably happen more often. If you're trying to fight with the likes of Nicky Taylor and Kyle Felders and Joel Lask, the mistakes are a lot less frequent and you almost have to force it out of them, so the racecraft becomes slightly different. And hopefully that's what Chris Blakey learned as he's getting quicker, and hopefully obviously they come in tandem with each other. You don't want to gain a load of pace and have no racecraft because he can be a little bit dangerous at the front end of the field. Tom Potter is currently razzing around in 7th place as well. Now, I didn't get to see too many of the first 2 races, Andy, at Donington Park. Of course, I think the story of it is how young he is, and of course, in 7th place, doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, I keep joking that racing drivers get younger and younger as I get older and older, but this really is taking that to a new level. 12-year-old Thomas Potter, who I did spot, I think, in the YouTube chat earlier on, his sister Catherine was wishing him the very best of luck. So good evening, Catherine. Good to have you watching along. And I mean, I know it's sim racing, and there is this cliche, isn't there, that kids and teenagers, well, not even really a teenager yet, is he? But kids spend a lot of time on their Xboxes and PlayStations and various other gaming systems. And these days, I suppose, PCs, it's not a huge stretch to imagine that some of them have maybe got some sort of sim racing rig set up as well. But that is mightily impressive to see someone of such a young age out there and clearly running quickly. Now, it will be interesting to see what his racecraft is like. He had reasonable pace a week ago. I'm trying to look back at yeah, he didn't score hugely well last week, but I seem to recall him qualifying not far outside of the top 10, so he's got decent pace, but we haven't yet seen him racing inside the top 10. But honestly, I've no reason so far to suspect that he's going to be anything other than a very competent racer, and it's nice to have another name in the mix.
Well, we have had people, in terms of experience, we have had people who've driven with us for years and are over twice his age, 3 times his age, who have very questionable racecraft. So it is one of those things. Age doesn't equate to racecraft and experience. So Josh Martin jumping up to 5th place. Always a pleasure. I'm not leading on to Josh Martin slating racecraft for any particular reason. Luckily, Josh is one of the people who has a sense of humour and will laugh about those sort of things. So it is nice. You said at the beginning, Andy. It's nice to see Josh right at the sharp end again, mostly because we always enjoy talking to him.
We do indeed. Yes, sorry, that was really funny. Yes, we do like to have.
Every so often.
We do like to have Josh at the front, and yeah, he was bang on the pace at Donington, wasn't he? He is 5th quickest at the moment, but carrying quite a bit more weight now, 30 kilos on board, and yeah, he will be a force to be reckoned with, and it's about time, quite frankly, that Josh Martin's been a force to be reckoned with, because obviously he was a former champion. In fact, one of our most recent front-wheel drive championships, touring car championships that we did, he was the champion of, and then in subsequent touring car series went to the rear-wheel drive BMW. Perhaps maybe that wasn't the best move. Maybe he should be sticking with front-wheel drive cars. Maybe that's where his real area of expertise lies. Right then, back end of the top 10, we've got Johnny Oulton here, 9th fastest at the moment, personal best in sector 1 though, and it's an improvement in time but not position. Stays where he was, 9th place, which is, Jack, 1 place ahead of our current championship leader, Joel Lask. So early days, I know, but I wonder if this is going to be one of those championships where we see a lot of ebbing and flowing. A driver scores well one week and then perhaps struggles the next. Certainly so far, that is the script that Joel Lask is running to.
Well, we sort of hope so from a neutral perspective, don't we? Let's be honest, because we want everybody winning. We want title contenders coming out the woodwork, left, right and centre. We want it to go all the way down with as many drivers in contention on the final 2 rounds as possible. And Joel Lask is clearly backing out of this one. Doesn't want the pressure from behind. Maybe he wants to pick up that slipstream. No. Here's Kyle Felvers. Now we can say a championship winner here at VRRC. Of a long time, it was one of those common myths that we thought, of course he's won a championship at some point, but he never had it until recently. And now he is. He's in 3rd place and hunting down his teammate, Nicky Taylor. The times are oh so close, Andy. There's less than a 1/10 of a second between the top 3, which is still pole position of Tom Churchhouse. We haven't really mentioned him since we saw him go to the top of the times. There's been no need because no one's got close to him. Well, not close enough to overtake him just yet. Top 4 separated by about less than 0.2 of a second. Then you'd argue there's a bit of a gap, isn't there, between 4th and 5th place. Everybody trying to fall over themselves to get that top 5. No one can really get to Andy Carroll.
Oh, now Andy Carroll, purple sector 1 though, as you say that, so Andy Carroll might be about to further tighten things up at the front. We've also just had a personal best in sector 1 for Josh Martin, so the 4th and 5th place drivers both finding improvements on board with Andy Carroll, and I would say that's nearly the perfect line through Stowe, but maybe a bit too wide over the white line. I haven't heard yet whether that invalidated the lap. We'll find out, I suppose, in a few seconds time, and then he just overruns the club chicane. That might just be enough then to have cost him any chance of a significant improvement. Let's see, across the line he goes. He's got time for one more lap. Felvers goes second, and Carroll improves his time but stays in 4th place. So Carl Felvers was the car just ahead of us then. Felvers did a purple sector 2, so those two fastest out there at the moment, and as Jack confidently predicted, we're really separating the field this week, aren't we, on a circuit that we haven't really raced at before. 56 thousandths of a second covering the front 2 rows. Pretty close.
I'd forgotten I said that, actually. It goes to show sometimes I might get lucky. I won't say that I know what I'm talking about, but I get lucky sometimes. Josh Martin came into the pits. He was an improvement in sector 1 and then pitted, so maybe he must have messed up Stowe and thought he's not going to go for another lap for whatever reason. Andy Carroll, no improvement in sector 1, but Chris Blakey has improved in sector 1, currently in 7th position. Only a couple of hundredths to go before he can even start challenging. Well, half a 10th actually. He could start worrying Josh Martin, but I think he's just gone a little too wide, and I think he's going into the pits now as well. Stowe, he just missed the apex. Kenny Press is another driver who's improving. He's in 12th. Could he crack the top 10? Blakey goes very wide. It's not going to be a pole position time for Blakey here. He didn't go into the pits. I was mistaken. But as he goes around Club Corner, around the final, it's going to be a race to the line. Could Chris Blakey crack the top 5? No, he's into 7th place. He must have missed the apex quite badly. Kenny Press is the only driver out there who might improve.
Yeah, let's see then. Needs to find, what, 1/4 of a 10th or so to move up 1 position. We'll have to wait and see whether he can do it. Here he comes. He'll be among the last cars to the line. And Kenny Press got a bit of a distant tow maybe from the car ahead, but no improvement in the end. And he will stay in 12th place. So it's Tom Churchhouse who snatches pole position then for our 2nd week of racing in the minis. Therefore, it is Tom Churchhouse who we'll be speaking to on the other side of this quick break. Welcome back, everyone. Qualifying done with here at Silverstone, and an exciting qualifying session it was as well. Super tight. The top 4 drivers covered by a little over half a tenth of a second, and plenty of others who had improvements in them there, but just for whatever reason weren't quite able to put the lap together. It's going to be a fascinating opening race coming up in the next few minutes or so. Before that, though, we're going to hopefully have a word with our pole man, Tom Churchhouse, who joins us in the commentary box. I'm just going to double check that he's here with us. Tom, can you hear me? As I feared, I don't think he can. Tom may have taken this opportunity, forgetting maybe, of this being the first time that he's been dragged into the commentary box. Might have taken this opportunity to go and refresh himself before race 1. Give him one more go before we move on. Tom, are you there? I don't think he is. So tell you what we'll do. We'll do some housekeeping first, and we'll run through the various things we need to run through, and then maybe he'll have made the trip back from the kitchen or wherever he finds himself. We'll have a chat with him in a moment or two, which means, Jack, that we can talk about a few of the things going on in the world of VRRC outside of our mini championship.
We can indeed, yeah. And while Tom takes a silent protest against the fact that we're not Richard John Neal, we can talk about the 90-minute races that we have had, the World Endurance Leagues. Round 1 and 2 have come and gone. Qatar and Imola, if you want to watch them back, if you're fancying some long endurance racing, long is in brackets, then we can where you can go back to the YouTube and you can watch them. But of course, we're off to Spa and Le Mans in April. After this particular championship, we have a couple of weeks off for the main championships, and that's when we do the World Endurance League. April 10th and April 24th at Spa and Le Mans before we go into another major championship. And then it's split up by rounds 5 and 6, Sao Paulo and Kota. One more championship, and then in September and October, we go to Fuji and Bahrain. Andy, it was a hell of a series opener, wasn't it? Qatar and Imola. It was really sort of made us very excited, and now we have to wait all these weeks before we get to the next couple.
Yeah, I mean, I would thoroughly recommend those who haven't watched those first 2 rounds go back and give them a go. I think we'll probably have to before the 10th of April, just to remind ourselves everything that happened, because they were very busy races, fascinating strategic races as well, which is something that I really enjoy about endurance racing. And yeah, there's a lot to remember. So I think before Spa, we might have to go on a bit of a refresher course as well. But it will be no chore because they were fantastic races. And I'm sure that the next 2 rounds coming up after the mini JCW Cup will be equally exciting at Spa and Le Mans. I mean, a 90-minute GT race at Le Mans really can't fail to entertain, can it? So that should be well worth tuning in for. Well, maybe not tuning in for, but as it will be worth joining in with, will be our virtual truck championship, which is coming up in the near future as well. This is if you fancy something very different to GTs, minis, just about anything really. It actually starts this Sunday. It is a sort of semi-serious championship. It's only a 3-week series. It's supposed to be a little bit of fun, really. 2 15-minute races, no full live broadcast, but there will be a live watch along, and entry is free for all VRRC Discord members. So if you've been watching from afar here on the VRRC YouTube channel and you want to try and get involved, this is your way to do so. Get yourself joined, become a member, and you can enter this 3-round series for absolutely nothing. Qualifying starts at 7 o'clock in the evening, followed by those 2 races. We're at the Nürburgring this weekend. We'll be at Zolder in early March. And then 2 weeks after that, we're racing at Le Mans, but not on the full 24-hour circuit. The Bugatti circuit will host the championship finale. Jack. Okay. I'm not sure if anyone heard Rich saying that then, or whether that was just him whispering in my ear. But we've got some real-life truck racing drivers as well who are going to be joining us for that one. So I don't know about you, Jack, but I'm tempted to give that a little go myself. If only the first round didn't clash with the Daytona 500, though, I must add.
Yeah, I was going to say, we know where your priorities lie, Andy, don't worry. It's trucks. I mean, I don't know if you commentated on them in real life. I've only ever come
Couple of
across
times.
them. Yeah, I've come across them once at Brands Hatch, and I have to say, it was splendidly entertaining. I was expecting it to be a bit dull, a bit slow, a bit hard work, to be honest. But my God, they know how to put on a show. And if nothing else, if you tune into the watch along or you have a go in these things, then I do urge you actually to go watch them in real life as well, because they are really very entertaining. And maybe you don't have to go all the way to, Zolder or somewhere like that, but head down to Brands Hatch or Donington or wherever your local one is. It's very, very good indeed. And that's not all that's going on at VRRC. Of course, we've got the time attacks. Standard time attacks are in full flow with the GTs, and of course, we are round 2 for the next 5 days in the Aston Martin GT3 around Las Vegas. Round 3 starts on the 19th, and that's when we head into the BMWs, the M2 GT2 around Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Before we head and finally get into the most challenging car, one that I am absolutely terrified to even try, to be honest. But round 4, which kicks off on the 4th of March for 2 weeks, will be the Porsche 911 GT1 around Le Mans. Andy, you can't ask for a more iconic scenario or situation than that, can you? The Porsche around Le Mans is just something to experience, even in the sim, for any racing driver fan.
Well, absolutely. I mean, a series of pretty iconic cars and tracks: Monaco, Spa, Le Mans, and Las Vegas, but which actually, according to Rich Hayden, as he keeps telling us, is absolutely epic. So I would love to know what exactly it is about the upside down pig that he enjoys so much. But apparently, really good fun, and you've got 4 days to give it a go yourselves and find out exactly what it is that Rich Hayden sees in the place. Anyway, moving on. Last thing to talk about before we go racing in the minis here at Silverstone. We've got our Formula One Mirror League, a new initiative for 2024. Kicks off on March the 7th. Goodness, is the new Formula One season really that close? That will be at Saudi Arabia. This is basically a 12-round series running right the way through to December the 5th, and it will run alongside select real-world Formula One races. Not each of them, but 12 of them anyway. So we go and race at a dozen of the very best Formula One circuits around the world and Las Vegas, and it is a great opportunity for you to get behind the wheel of a single-seater. We're using the Formula 3 cars, and once again, it is free entry for VRRC members and non-members, £10 per round. You can drop in and out if you want. One drop score, because it is a full championship with trophies and medals up for grabs for podium finishers, and at the end of the championship, that is, and the driver of the round each week. So interested to see how that goes, and that will be kicking off on March the 7th. We are already halfway through February. What is going on? Right, we will have mini racing coming your way here on the VRRC in just a few minutes' time. Round number 3 of the championship coming right up. So, welcome back everybody. Race 1 just around the corner here from the Silverstone International Circuit. Round 3 of the mini JCW Cup. We are less than a minute away, I believe, from lights out for our first race of the evening. Tom Churchhouse starting from pole position with Kyle Felvers alongside. Fascinating front row that, Jack, isn't it? Tom Churchhouse desperate to try and get his first victory here at the VRRC. Kyle Felvers has won a few races, but perhaps this is one of the most important races for him to try and win and get some points on the board.
Yeah, I think Nicky Taylor will be clamouring to try and get up there as well, obviously prove a point. It's a bit of a lose-lose situation for Nicky Taylor, really, isn't it? Being an actual real-life mini driver. If he wins, well, everybody just says, oh, well, you know, you're a mini driver in real life. That's not really very impressive. If he loses, everybody says, way, we beat a mini driver. So it's really very difficult for him. But hopefully, obviously, he just comes in with some strong points and has good fun. Most important thing. And Andy Carroll, as we said, in practice was very, very good, but couldn't seem to string it together for qualifying. Not that his lap times were particularly bad in qualifying, just not good enough, obviously, to replicate what he did in practice. Some other people have stepped up. So let's see if Tom Churchhouse is first and foremost needs to get off the line well.
Yes, which is an art, of course, especially in a front-wheel drive car. Let's see whether he can do it then. From pole position, can he convert it into his first ever VRRC victory? We're about to find out. 25 minutes on the clock. We have got the 6 red lights illuminated, and round number 3 of the championship about to get underway. That happens now. The lights are out. It's a long drag, slightly uphill, as you can see, into the fast right-hander at Abbey Corner, and Kyle Felvers has got away really well. He's challenging for the race lead. In fact, I think he'll take the race lead into Abbey, with Nicky Taylor challenging Tom Churchhouse for second place. Felvers gets the advantage then. Churchhouse sees off Nicky Taylor for the time being, whilst Josh Martin slots into 4th place just behind them. Late on the brakes. Churchhouse too late on the brakes. Into the side of Felvers. Sideways he goes. Felvers nerfed off the track. He will be spitting feathers, but Nicky Taylor will be laughing his socks off because he inherits the race lead. Felvers second, and already Jack, I think, fired up and ready to try and challenge once more down the Hanger Straight.
Elvis actually had a really nice exit, didn't he, onto the rest of the international circuit, and going down towards Stowe, he's going to get that side draft from Nicky Taylor, and Tom Churchhouse trying to get past Josh Martin, who's charged up from 5th position. Kyle Felvers retakes the race lead into Stowe. Churchhouse on the inside of another driver. Josh Martin will be looking at that, praying and hoping that he's not the next Kyle Felvers, who has just got into the race lead, though. Josh Martin still going defensive down in towards the club chicane, with Andy Carroll just behind, almost nudging him through, trying to push their way through. This is proper door-to-door and, well, bumper-to-bumper action, isn't it? As the gap seems to have pulled out a little bit behind Thomas Potter, who's gone from 7th up to 6th and is leaving the rest of the field behind. But 7th place, Joel Last, not to be sniffed at, really. A 3-place gain as Kyle Felvers and Nicky Taylor, the HFT boys, are leading the way.
Interesting as well that Josh Martin's up there in 3rd place. Lask, as you said, has gained some places to 7th, but Brad Smith, 2nd in the championship, all the way down in, well, right down the order anyway, outside the top 10, I believe, 11th place for the time being. There are 3 Smiths, Jack. I'll give you the first race to try and figure out which one is which, because it confused me for the entirety of our Donington broadcast, I can assure you. Brad Smith, number 69, running actually in 9th position as we speak. Right, leaders down the back straight then, towards Stowe Corner. All sorts of silliness going on at the back of the shop, but meanwhile the real attention has to go to the battle for 3rd place, where Tom Churchhouse is up the inside of Josh Martin, and the fight back begins.
It does indeed, yeah. Josh Martin trying to get a better exit, but it's not going to happen out of Stowe, going down towards the club chicane. Churchhouse going for that defensive line, which is exactly what Martin did just a lap ago. In fact, I don't think he even went that defensive, but he smashes the sausage curb with all his might. That might give Josh Martin an opportunity. Taylor through and trying to chase down Felvers. I think they're just going to work together, to be honest. Andy, they're probably experienced enough, mature enough to do that. Who's going off the background?
I'm not entirely sure. Drivers taking full advantage of Silverstone's very generous runoff areas on the exit of a couple of the corners, but race leaders so far keeping it clean. Interesting that you mentioned working together. We saw an element of that at Donington actually a week ago, where I think it was Joel Lask and Brad Smith, if memory serves me right, who really worked well together in race 2 to catch John Higgins. They spent about 10 minutes catching John Higgins, the race leader, and as soon as they caught him, started knocking lumps out of each other and allowed John Higgins to win the race pretty comfortably in the end. So we'll wait and see whether Tom Churchhouse and Josh Martin do that now to try and reel in the race leader. Not much working together going on here, though, I don't think. This is Andy Carroll with Thomas Potter right behind him. Potter started 7th. He's up 1 place already to 6th. I said that this would be a real test of his racecraft, and we're about to see that right now as he challenges for 5th place heading down the hill.
Yeah, he's going to go for a little lunge. He's having to think about it, isn't he? He's trying to fill the mirrors of Andy Carroll, seeing how he's going to blink, basically. As we see, oh, is that Piercy going very, very wide through the chicane? That's not going to help him at all as he goes down towards the Lewis Hamilton straight. If I'm correct in believing, Andy, I think that the Lewis Hamilton straight is the only part of Silverstone that's actually named after a racing driver, isn't it?
Now you're asking me.
Do I know something you don't about a circuit?
I think, unless there was a Formula 1 driver called Thomas Club, yes, I think you might be right.
Oh, there we go. I can't believe it. I've never known anything, ladies and gentlemen, that Andy hasn't already known about a racing circuit in the UK. I'm quite honest. Yeah, but Thomas Potter does seem to be doing quite well, doesn't he? I think he's actually collecting the apexes a little bit nicer than Andy Carroll.
Yes, collecting the apexes. I'm using that one. A brilliant run out of Chapel, and he is going to challenge, I think, now for 5th place, heading towards Stowe Corner. He's got the inside line, and that should be the preferred line through the right-hander. Late on the brakes. He's later than Andy Carroll, and as long as he hooks up the apex, he should get the place. He just missed the apex, though. Look, drifts a bit wide, and Carroll will try to get the switch back. The trouble is the next corner is a left-hander in the entry to the club chicane, so Andy switches to the left-hand side of the road instead. I don't think that quite worked. Potter manages to hang on, but that battle jack has allowed Joel Lask, the championship leader, remember Joel Lask, to get a little bit closer to them. So no longer a private battle. This is now a three-way fight for position inside the top 5.
Exactly the sort of race that Joel Lask needs, isn't it? Because he clearly doesn't have the overall pace to be going and winning, but you really want to still be picking up the most amount of points at the rounds you don't particularly like. You're only as good as your worst round, really, in motorsport, aren't you? I think it's the old cliche. Joel Lask is certainly doing a pretty good job of collecting as many points as he possibly can in this second round, keeping that drop score as long and far into the championship as humanly possible. If he can get a top 5 out of this first race, he can be pretty happy with how this one is going. And by the looks of Andy Carroll, who I think is looking a little bit wayward and a little bit erratic, I think he might have an opportunity to at least get the 6th place. Tom Potter needs to pull away before he sees the blue mini sort of firing down his exhaust.
Yeah, indeed so. Joel Lask then challenging almost as they arrive at Stowe Corner. The Phoenix Sim Racing car stays, though, in 7th place for the time being. How's Brad Smith getting on? Well, he's having a lonely race, really. He's down in 10th position at the moment, but about a second behind Chris Blakey. Here he comes, actually, towards us in the bright green and yellow car. Joel Lask, always an exciting driver to watch, and once again catching my attention. But Brad Smith is struggling. Not only is he dropping away from the cars ahead, he's under pressure here from Johnny Ogden. Johnny Ogden in the white and black car looks a bit quicker right now than Brad, and in fact he's going to challenge for that position as they head past the pits.
Yeah, going into Abbey is a little bit of a touch and go corner. You don't really want to be going side by side there because you're going to ruin the run for both drivers, but as long as you don't hit each other, it can be a really impressive and very, very exciting move. And Ogden couldn't quite get it done. Brad Smith survives for at least 1 or 2 more corners as Ogden smashes the curb on the inside. And here we go. Here's another Smith. Is this Matt Smith? No, it's Nathan Smith. Nathan Smith, who's decided to come in on the action as we see them clambering all over the curbs. I'll tell you what, Andy, I don't know which way to call it. Maybe because I don't know which Smith is which.
Yeah, tell me about it. Especially when they start battling each other, that really does get confusing, and that might happen because Nathan Smith just made a brilliant effort at a move around the outside of Johnny Ogden, who in fairness left him plenty of space. He's not really being given the same treatment by Nathan, though, who turned straight across his nose there, and Johnny, actually, I think rather too generously, decided to bail out of that one. So Nathan Smith gains a place. He's up into 11th position, and that has also now brought Zamfir around.
Oh!
Right up into his tail. Nathan Smith almost goes over, and here will come Radu up the inside of the pair of them. That was a little bit too much curve through the club chicane, and Nathan Smith is lucky to still be on his wheels.
Fairly impressive not to roll it, wasn't it? It was, well, very entertaining to watch. I'm sure he'll love to see the replay of that one, right up until the point where he loses all the positions and gets hit on the backside. Nicky Taylor, about a 10th away. I don't think Carl Phelps is really worried. I wouldn't be surprised. They're always on a Google Meet, aren't they, these two? And with a few other drivers normally actually chatting about whatever's going on. But I don't know about you, but Carl Phelps looks like he's trying to break the toe there.
I think he's just defending. Well, actually, no, maybe he was letting him go. He got a poor run off the corner, I think, and it was hard to tell from that angle whether Nicky had the run or whether Kyle realises Nicky's faster and let him go. But I don't think he needed to do that. They're gapping Church House, so yeah, strange one. But anyway, Nicky Taylor grabs the lead.
He does indeed. About 0.3 of a second is the tune. He has the lead, but obviously that's pretty much nothing, as you can see in front of you. 16.5 minutes left. Obviously, it's 25-minute races these days, aren't they? And it means we've got a long time before we really even need to worry or have a conversation about how these two are going to end up, because it's probably going to be the last 5 minutes when they start actually arguing about who leads this one. Church House hasn't gone down without a fight, though. It has to be said, they are having to work together quite hard to stay ahead of him. And if they do start making mistakes, let's say Nicky Taylor makes a mistake and holds up both of them, Church House, like he just has, will probably gain about 3 or 4 tenths. And I think he gained that just through Abbey.
Yeah, well, because Nicky Taylor went really defensive into Village, so that sort of backed them both up. So if Kyle did wave him through, why is Nicky then defending from him? This will be the telltale, really, because down the Hanger Straight, Kyle is clearly close enough to either attack or push Nicky Taylor, and it looks like he's doing the latter. So I think he is now happy to sit in the wheel tracks of his longtime friend and teammate for a while, and I think those two are going to be definitely working together for the foreseeable. Felvers using that slipstream. It is one of those tracks, especially in a unaerodynamic car such as this one, where you can use the slipstream quite well. And Carl Felvers, whose car is sporting those wounds from the assault by Tom Churchhouse at the start of the race, I think he's going to use that slipstream to good effect now, save the tyres maybe in the mid part of the race. Meanwhile, Johnny Ogden and Nathan Smith continuing to battle. Ogden up the inside into the club chicane. This is all over 11th position. Nathan Smith giving the curb a wide berth, not through choice, but because Johnny Ogden's car was trying to slip up the inside, and now it still keeps coming round the outside. They're wheel to wheel down the pit straight as behind. A real hip check given to Zamfir Radu as Kenny Press came through into 13th. But this is a brilliant battle happening just outside the top 10, and still, Jack, they go door to door.
Yeah, it's very, very close indeed.
Ooh.
Although I think, as I say that, I think they've just gapped each other as Nathan Smith will have a little bit of a bit of a buffer to Johnny Ogden now, who doesn't seem to have come out of either of the scraps that we've seen, particularly positively, has he? Joel Lask still not in... Sorry, he has overtaken Andy Carroll, actually. Joel Lask is in 7th place still, though, because Piercy has actually overtaken both of them. I was about to say Lasker hasn't made any moves forward. He has got past one driver. He's just let another driver get through. So Thomas Potter's still in 5th place. Josh Martin's still in 4th. Churchhouse still in 3rd. And obviously Felvers and Taylor are the two drivers that we've been focusing on a lot towards the front end, as they are the closest battle within the top 5. Everybody else has sort of gapped themselves quite substantially, really, Andy, which is something that's slightly surprising on such a short circuit.
Yeah, it is really, especially with the power of the slipstream, but yeah, that certainly seems to have happened. The other thing that's surprising me a bit is that Andy Carroll isn't further up, 8th position at the moment for Andy, who was the pace setter in tonight's free practice session, but maybe keeping his powder dry, waiting for race 2. At the moment, all 21 starters are still running, and still running on the lead lap as well, so it would be a full reverse grid if we were to throw the checkered flag now. We won't be throwing the checkered flag for another 13.5 minutes. We could pack now to this never-ending battle for 11th place. Johnny Ogden back up the inside of Nathan Smith, reclaims P11, but Nathan then tries to get the switch back, can't quite get the overlap through the loop, and as they head down the link road, he will settle back in behind Ogden, who snatches that rear brake. You can see there the slightly downhill, off-camber nature of that 90-degree right-hander, and that gives Nathan Smith maybe the opportunity to challenge once again. Heading down towards Stowe. Challenge he will, flashing the lights as he does so. He's got the inside line, and this could get very entertaining through the second half of the lap.
Yeah, Ogden has to yield. Nathan Smith went a little bit too hot on the brakes. I think Ogden actually saw that one coming, gave him enough room, and, well, I have to say, quite good racing respect as Ogden holds on to 11th position. Nathan Smith all kinds of sideways on the rear, but to be fair, I think Ogden was as well. I think most people outside the top 10 are drifting through that section of the track as they go down through the final corner to restart it all again. I don't think Nathan Smith's going to be able to pull up alongside him through Abbey. Going into Village, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little lunge, Andy.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with you there. He needs a good run through the left-hander, though, really, at Farm, which he has late on the brakes. He's got the inside line, and this is a terrific scrap, isn't it? Johnny Ogden left him plenty of space on the way in. Nathan Smith leaves him plenty of space on the way out, and as a result, they come out actually still in the same order. But it's such a wide piece of racetrack, that, isn't it? Same as the run down into Stowe, that it can be a bit deceptive. It often looks as though a driver has got the move made on the inside line, and then actually the wide sweeping entry, that's the fastest way through the corner. Which way will it go down at Stowe this time? I think they're going to stay in the wheel tracks to each other, aren't they, for now? Johnny Ogden staying in front, and Nathan Smith tagging along behind him. Battle there, though. That was Andy Carroll defending, I think, from Chris Blakey for 8th position. They're both sort of stacked up behind a struggling Joel Lask. Joel Lask has dropped away from Lee Piercy now, Jack, to the tune of nearly 2 seconds, and into the clutches of Carroll and Blakey, who themselves are looking likely to go side by side towards turn 1.
Yeah, and it's going to be Blakey who's going to get on the inside as well. It's very tight, it's very fast. I think Carroll came out of that just about on top, but for how long? Going into Village then. Here comes Blakey once more. late on the brakes. Is he too late? Is he going to be able to get the apex? He gets the apex. But look at that, Carroll with the right, really nice amount of momentum going around the outside, getting the left-hander, and Chris Blakey's going to have to do the hard work up the inside yet again, but there's so much runoff. It's running over the cameraman almost for Andy Carroll. I think Chris Blakey is going to have this one sewn up though as they go through slow, as long as he doesn't outbrake himself.
Well, I mean, Carroll went so wide there that he's actually carried some good momentum onto the straight. But yeah, Blakey will take the position heading into Stowe Corner, and Andy Carroll, can't help but say this has been a bit of a disappointing race for Andy. We've seen him have some really great races in front-wheel drive machinery over the years, but for whatever reason tonight, things just not clicking after a really promising start to the evening's proceedings. But anyway, he's in 9th position, and he'll be hoping that he can try and regain some positions before the end. The next car behind him is Brad Smith, having also a nightmare race, really. The man who was second in both of the races at Silverstone, struggling a minute. Further back, Zamfir Radu getting back past Kenny Press. Now, I've just read in the YouTube chat, Adam Lyle, who we've seen racing with us here in the recent past, has said that Zamfir only downloaded the track 2 hours ago. Now, granted, it's not the most complex of racetracks to learn. It's not, for example, an Oulton Park or a Cadwell Park, but still, the fact that he's running here in 13th, getting stuck into the battles, pretty impressive.
It is indeed, actually. And just to touch on Adam Lyle, he should be racing today as well. He's one of the 7 drivers, unfortunately, haven't been able to get on the circuit, or 6, I think, actually, in the end, which is a bit of a shame. But it's not anything to do with that famed holiday that it shares the 14th of February, I don't think, anyway, because he's watching the stream. That would be awkward. I think it's more to do with the fact that he's broken 2 metatarsals and twisted his knee, apparently. So, yeah, that's a bit of a shame. I hope you get better soon. Maybe, obviously, dial back the hydraulics on the brake pedal. You've obviously been stamping on it too long. But hopefully be back soon. Obviously, might have to miss the championship if the brakes are so bad. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Indeed so, and yeah, we hope to have him back on the grid in the very near future. Right then, through Abbey Corner goes Andy Carroll, and trying to stick with Chris Blakey if he can. That little tussle these two have just had there has just given Joel Lask a bit of breathing room, and as soon as actually they left him alone, he started going quite quickly again. He's now within a second actually of Lee Pearcey, so Joel Lask could yet challenge for 6th position before the end of the race. The other gap, Jack, that has been coming down slowly but surely is the gap between the leaders and Tom Churchhouse in 3rd position. He's now only about 1 point, well, it was a second a moment or two ago, adrift of Nicky Taylor, who is back behind Carl Felvers. So, okay, lots has happened here. Felvers has got the lead. Taylor seems to be struggling, and Tom Churchhouse is not out of this yet.
Yeah, maybe there was a bit of a mistake by Nicky Taylor. We saw that he was a bit susceptible of it once he got into the lead. Maybe he went a little bit too wide. Maybe he outbroke himself or something, and he had to. He was almost forced to let Felvers back through, and obviously didn't help him for the rest of the lap. That would explain maybe his loss of about half a second. But Churchhouse now smells blood in the water. It's less than a second between him and the top 2. Felvers has got a little bit of breathing room, and obviously he's got the bodyguard of Nicky Taylor. But Churchhouse, after qualifying on pole, is not done here in the very British-looking Mini around Silverstone. As we said, it does look good. It does suit here, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it suits the Mini, really, doesn't it? You can't go wrong with a red and white Mini. It's a racing and rallying livery, indeed, that dates all the way back to the 1960s. And Tom Churchhouse is driving it very, very well indeed. And he is looking, actually, like one of the quickest drivers on the track. I think he and Felvers clearly a bit quicker than Nicky Taylor at the moment. Out of Stowe Corner they head, the top 3 all in one shot. And this, Jack, is why I enjoy these slightly longer races. I think it was a really smart move to increase the race length to 25 minutes from 20, because you do just have that extra bit of time for the race to develop. Drive means tyre management becomes a little bit more of a factor, and that is an issue around a circuit like this in front-wheel drive cars with all of these sort of long, high-speed right-handers, and drivers can just pace themselves a little bit. Tom Churchhouse obviously lost ground in the early stages. In a 20-minute race, we'd be starting the penultimate lap now, and he'd have no hope of a race victory, but here he is, hunting down the race leaders, still in with a chance.
Yeah, I think Rich Hayden's quite pleased with himself about that and how well it's worked. I think he's mostly pleased with the fact that he's managed to increase the length of the broadcast and not pay us anymore. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm kidding, Rich, I'm kidding. I will question it later. Anyway, it is really enjoyable to see Church House, be able to have the opportunity to chase them down. Like you said, it's not just Church House, of course. We're looking at Kenny Press right now, who's tried to chase after Zamfir. Radu, again, Radu's been off the circuit. He's been back on. He's been fighting further up inside the top 10. He's been knocked back. It's very entertaining, and to be honest, when you have those sort of races, it can be frustrating, but sport is frustrating. It's also hugely enjoyable. Hopefully he comes off this feeling like he's earned whatever position he ends up in. So, and plus, of course, Nathan Smith ahead, all that battling. He's had a similar story where he's been constantly in battles, constantly having to work hard, even to just get in the positions just outside the top 10. Just goes to show how skilled the level of the drivers are inside the top 10. I think they've all been really enjoying it. And as you said, with 5 minutes to go, there's still plenty of racing left to be done out there.
Absolutely. I mean, we understandably spend a lot of time talking to drivers who finished inside the top 3 positions at the end of the race, and you don't often get much of a sense of enjoyment from them because they're up there, they're fighting for wins, they're fighting for a championship. It all becomes a bit stressful, really, and you're not really focused on enjoying yourself, you're just focused on getting the very best results that you can. Tom Churchhouse makes the mistake that I always make into that corner, actually, dips a wheel on the